Welcome to the Friday panel series of the International Writing Program's Fall Residency. For those of you who are new to our programming, we've given our writers a topic to consider and present to you today. To learn about the group's this year's cohort of writers, visit IWP.uiowa.edu, where you can find biographies and writing samples from our writers and a schedule of our upcoming events. You can also find this information by scanning the QR code on the bookmarks available at the back of the room. There is also pizza every Friday, graciously provided by International Programs. And generally speaking, we put the writers' presentations up on our website within a week or so after the panel, so you can read it there. This year it'll be a little bit different because the IWP in mid-residency will be switching over to a brand new website. Mike McGinnis has been putting that together for us the next few weeks. So those presentations will be available likely in about mid-October, just around the time of the start of the Iowa City Book Festival. Now for today's panel. Our format for every panel is the same. I'll introduce the writers going down the list. They'll each give a brief presentation, and then we'll open it up to questions. Ikram Basra will be wandering around with the microphone. Please don't begin answering your question until he reaches you with the microphone. Otherwise, people watching at home won't be able to hear what they're saying. And we also want our future audience watching on YouTube to be able to hear you. Immediately to my left is Kritzi. He's a poet, editor, nonfiction writer, and New Zealand's Poet Laureate. He's the author of the poetry collections How to Be Dead in a Year of Snakes, SO MASC, and Supermodel Minority, the latter of which was a finalist for the 2023 Lambda Literary Award for Gay Poetry. He co-edited Out Here, an anthology of Takatāpui and LGBTQIA plus writers from Aotearoa. In 2016, he received the Jessie Mackay Award for Best First Book of Poetry at the Ockham New Zealand Book Awards. He is the current New Zealand Poet Laureate, and his participation in the Fall Residency was made possible by a grant from Creative New Zealand. Next to Chris is Smith Likongwe, playwright, poet, fiction and nonfiction writer, academic from Malawi. He's a lecturer in drama and theater studies at the University of Malawi. He also serves as the president of the Association Internationale de Théâtre pour l'Enfance et la Jeunesse Malawi. His publications include Kamuzo Banda and Other Plays, Living Play Scripts, a trilogy, and Poetry and Drama, a Malayan anthology. He's the editor and a contributor to the anthologies The Chief's Blanket and Other Plays, Southern African Plays Collection, and Chimdotha Nidi Zizuda Zina, Chimdote and Other Plays, among others. He's also written 2 children's books in the Chinua language and many plays that aired as part of the Malawi Broadcasting Corporation's various radio drama programs. His participation in the IWP was made possible by the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs at the U.S. Department of State. Next to Smith is Caroline Kamel, a nonfiction writer and fiction writer, journalist, and filmmaker from Egypt. She is a Cairo-based journalist and the author of the novel Victoria. She has published stories with a focus on the concerns of women and other social issues in several literary magazines, and is currently writing a second novel titled Claiming Life, which tells the intersecting stories of 3 women born in different decades. Her first feature film, The Lottery, is presently in the editing process, and her participation in the IWP was made possible by the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs at the U.S. Department of State. Next to Caroline is Fodiso Modira, a poet, nonfiction writer from Botswana. She's the author of Speaking in Code, a chapbook published by the Akashic Books as part of the TISA New Generation American Poets box set. She performed at the inauguration ceremony of the current president of Botswana, and her work has received the Botswana President's Award in Contemporary Poetry. Her writing has appeared or is forthcoming in Ada, Guernica, Brittle Paper, Lowe, Agupo, 20.35, Africa, and other literary magazines. In 2022, she was a resident poet at the Gaborone Art Residency Center, and her participation in the IWP was made possible by the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs at the U.S. Department of State. Just a note about upcoming chances to see the IWP in action. On Sunday at 4 o'clock, we'll have an IWP reading at Prairie Lights featuring Nicholas Wong from Hong Kong, Catarina Gomez from Portugal, and Grace Morse from the nonfiction writing program. That evening at 7, there will be a special screening of One Tree, Three Lives, a documentary about the IWP founders, Paul and Walling Engel. This will be held in the Adler Journalism Building in room E105. Next Wednesday, September 18th, I will be back here at noon with the Iowa City Foreign Relations Council to present on writing democracy and global threats to both. I will be joined by Tabish Kair and Lubia Yamachuk from Ukraine. Please go to icfrc.org to register. And now to the writers. Chris?
Ena mana, era reo, ena karangatanga maha, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Hello everyone, thank you for being here today. I was going to write about emerging technologies on the internet, such as AI, but I decided to actually step back a little earlier. There are days when I wish that the internet hadn't been invented. At its worst, it's a hellscape of unimaginable horrors where irrationality is king and our patience and decorum are tested on a daily, if not hourly, basis. Of course, there are some benefits that the internet has brought us. In the literary world, this includes being able to connect with other writers from around the world and increased access to books and writing that previously might never have made their way to far-flung shores. When I think about how much the internet shaped me as a young person, I realize it was a major proponent of my origin story, not only as a poet and a reader, but in the way I was able to excavate and express the many identities I was juggling as a Chinese New Zealander and as a young gay man. Since my first steps into the digital world, the internet has been a place where I mask and unmask myself, curating multiple versions of the identities I inhabit. Some of these versions are for me. Others are or have been what I think the world wants me to be. Depending on the context, this curation has been a form of self-preservation or an exercise in counteracting shame. Plato, who believed all poets to be liars, would have his mind blown seeing how we present slant versions of our lives and grapple with the challenges of presenting the truth on the internet. In a world where our identities can be celebrated or used against us at the flick of a switch, how we portray ourselves online mirrors the tension some writers face when navigating between the eye of the page and the eye of their personal lives. Whether posting to social media or starting a new piece of writing, we're making decisions about what and how much we reveal, constantly crossing, negotiating, and blurring the line that separates fact from fiction. That's why I now see that the internet was, in some ways, a training ground for me to shape my creative practice as a writer. I'm of the generation that came of age in the mid-90s when the internet was establishing itself as a part of our daily lives at a rapid pace. It's safe to say we had no idea how much would change with this technology, even with the future lingering on the fringes of our earliest forays into its possibilities. Perhaps we went in with low expectations. After all, the promise of flying cars and teleportation in previous visions of the future had yet to materialize. My earliest joy from surfing the World Wide Web was finding community in forums and bulletin boards where I could get swept up in the collective excitement about upcoming releases by my favorite musicians or argue about who deserved to win that year's Oscar for Best Actress. The internet was a place for pointless arguments about things that many claimed to be experts about. Not much has changed. In order to participate in these spaces, I had to create a profile with a username, the name that others would recognize me and call me by. Sometimes, but not always, I'd also have to choose a user photo or avatar, or include further information about myself, such as age, sex, location, or other interests. It was up to each user to reveal as much or as little of themselves as they desired, and we often could never tell if what others said about themselves was true. In the intervening decades, social media platforms have come and gone, all with their own take on how we connect with others. But one thing has remained the same. We are compelled to curate a version of ourselves for each platform. Whether it's the photos we select and edit for Instagram, the trends we take part in on TikTok, the lyrics we used as status messages, or how we sell ourselves on dating apps. Each decision is an act of storytelling, where we all use the tools at our disposal as writers, such as character, voice, setting, narrative, and illusion. Throughout my career as a writer, I have gone through various stages of deciding how much to reveal about myself and my work, making careful consideration of what readers need to know and what I am prepared to make public knowledge. Although there is a difference between what I post on social media and what I choose to put in a poem, there are similar considerations in intent. Both are outlets I use to tell my story. They can exist independently of each other, but they are also two sides of the same coin. Picture this future, the internet as an open archive for biographers and historians to mine for information about authors, their interpersonal conflicts revealed in comment sections, and memes they posted being held up as fragments of manifestos. As writers, we can imagine the future, but what will the digital future say about us?
Sorry, I have to clear my throat so that I'm also able to hear myself. The gradual emergence of digital storytelling is slowly pushing traditional storytelling to the brink of disappearance in certain areas of the world, depending on the advancement of technology. The preliminary reactions amongst the storytellers and story audiences may differ depending on various situations. Whereas some storytellers may rejoice at the proliferation of technologies that aid their trade, some story audiences may frown at the sad development. It is crucial at this point to first address what is lost when digital storytelling overrides traditional storytelling. The physical presence of a storyteller in a traditional setting with the audience present brings about unparalleled intimacy. The storyteller is able to gauge the mood in real time and, where necessary, react to spontaneous verbal and nonverbal responses by, among others, adjusting tone or pace in order to capitalize on the existing mood to achieve a shared emotional experience. In many parts of the country, my country, Malawi, and indeed in other parts of Zambia, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and indeed many other countries, indigenous storytelling tradition requires the frequent interaction with the audience. In Chichewa, my local language, a storyteller would begin with the following words: "Padango khala," and the audiences would respond, "Tiritonse." Padango khala means once upon a time, and Tiritonse literally means we are together. But this translates into we are listening. Where necessary, the storyteller pauses and gives a signal for audience response. The audience responds in unison. Tiritonse. The traditional call and response storytelling strategy is best utilized in these circumstances. As you can see, the storyteller is able to pause for dramatic effect, appropriately create a suspenseful mood, and build build towards the climax with an audience they are directly interacting with. You see, you cannot time the response of the audience. You cannot time how long they are going to laugh or clap hands. So in a traditional storytelling, that works to the advantage of the storyteller. Since it is an interactive session, the storyteller is able to pause appropriately for periods of laughter, applause, or even weeping as the mood may be. This would be difficult, if not impossible, in a digital storytelling setup. Well, having looked at the losses, it is appropriate to appreciate the seemingly irreversible trend of digital storytelling that is slowly swallowing the traditional storytelling in certain areas of the world. The first question should perhaps be, should we lament or rejoice as a result of this development? Personally, I have no direct response to that. It is up to the audience to decide. But before delving into the advantages of digital storytelling over traditional storytelling, it is important to appreciate the general changes in terms of people's concentration and focus spans. I have no specific proof to present, as I have not carried out any scientific research, but I put it to you that my general observation is that amongst the people I am able to observe, the attention span for adults is dwindling little by little and has started to be almost at par with that of children. I repeat, I haven't done any research, but it looks like that to me. A good number of people seem to be more inclined to be more recipient to shorter and more picturesque renditions of storytelling episodes. Digital storytelling is able to respond to some of the desires for such audiences. It is easy to integrate various formats such as the use of moving pictures, create arranged sound effects to the accompaniment of audio narration. And it is also easy to combine animation with realistic picture presentations. It is easy to cross-blend real and imagined circumstances. I should hasten to say, however, that the ease with which digital storytelling is made also makes it easy to fabricate false stories and present them as real. You have seen people taking other people's pictures, faces, and placing on somebody's. In the process, the reputation of some people may be tarnished. With storytelling, however, that may not be applicable because of the awareness that it is only fiction. Whereas traditional storytelling may be limited to localized audiences familiar with relevant customs and traditions in the stories, digital storytelling transcends traditional and indigenous boundaries with relative ease. Writers of storytellers would normally aspire to tell their stories to larger audiences. And with the digitalization, it is easier to retain certain renditions of stories as opposed to the traditional storytellers whose stories may keep on changing direction with the passing of stories from one storyteller to another. I believe the writer is challenged more now to be ready for multimedia storytelling beyond the text that is written. I put it to you that with the digital storytelling, there have been losses made, but there have also been gains made. I thank you.
Hello. Please don't use this paper because I have another beginning. It just happened now. Okay, but I will tell the quote I use because I love it. Stories only happen to those who are able to tell them. It's Paul Auster, and I love it. So, okay. 2 weeks, I met a wonderful woman here. She's a friend now, and she is a wife for the first Egyptian writer come to this program here. And we have a lot of stories, but today she surprised me when she told me it was a long-distance relationship that they took in the telephone for 3 minutes. Hello, how are you? I love you, bye. So it's very surprised me that it's lost, this relation. At this time that we have all this internet, all this online, and nothing lost after like 3-5 months. This kind of relations distance, it doesn't work. So it reminds me that we need roots every time to have a story. And this is what the online taught me, that stories are available to be in a post, and you can share it like thousands times, but after a while we will forget it. But stories with these roots, which depend on research, it lasts. And for me, research is not about Google. It's about looking to the books, look to streets, to find where can I find these roads for stories. I started my second book 2 years ago. So I need to find the papers written in the 40s of the last century for Egyptian people, because now we have a different dialogue as Egyptian, and they said this is not the language that the people used to use. It was a more decent language. People were polite, and they use this nice Arabic, but what we have now, it's not decent enough, and we don't use in writing. So I went to this market. We have a very weird market in Egypt that only one day you can find personal documents that people, I don't know how we have it, but maybe people died and they don't have anyone to keep these papers, like letters, like certificates, everything. So every week I go to find some papers, and one day I found a big books that have letters like that. And I said, okay, it's not very ancient, it's not 40s, it's 80s, but let's see the language too, why not? It's the age of my parents, that they were young. Yeah, yes, not young, like we're engaged. So I found a letter to a man who worked in Saudi Arabia, and he wrote to a woman. And the letter was beginning that he and another someone are missing her. So I said, yeah, the child was him, but why she's in Egypt? She's not with him. And then this child start to need some stuff, doesn't fit from a boy to a mother. So after I finished the letter, I felt there is something wrong in this letter. So I read it again until I figure out that it's an erotic letter that he wrote to her. It's about his needs. And he gave a name to his stuff. So... So I said, oh my God, I like this man. Okay. So, and the weather is really hot, and I asked the man, the one who owns these books, can I put all this on the floor to find what I need? He said, yeah. And it takes me like 3 hours looking for all letters that this man wrote, and I found 9 letters. The majority are erotic letters, wrote in 90s. And it surprised me because we are a very conservative community. We are very religious, and I always have this joke about my parents that they never know what is the French kiss, so my mom curses me all the time because it's bad that I'm saying that. But with these letters, I found a root of a story. So I wrote on one article, I wrote on a post, and people engaged a lot, and then I wrote an article in my newspaper that I'm writing, and the people get more attached to the man. And a publishing house wrote to me, are you interested to write a book about this man and these letters? I said, yes, of course. So, so now I'm working on this book that I have this story about these letters, which started with, I'm looking for a roots that keep my story online that never die. Because anyone can write this fancy posts, but after like 1 week it will be evaporate. No one will remember it. But until now, they still asking for where is the man that you have his letters, because we are curious about what people write to each other. We have this in our soul. And this is what makes a story in this time, in this digital time, lost. If I want to tell a story about someone, I will do a huge research to make this story worth something and stay along. So I don't have this kind of nostalgia that with digital we don't have good stories or we can't do good stories. It's more effort. That's what we need. We need to work more. This is a big difference. And yes, and thank you.
Bethu dumelang. In my language, that is greetings. It is estimated that there are over 2,000 languages spoken in Africa. And as Ngugi wa Thiong'o says, language has a dual character, as a means of communication and as a carrier of culture. However, any child of school age knows that English has always been the standard in Botswana. Forget Sekalaka, Setebele, Simbukushu, or Sekhalakadi. As we grew up, we practiced hard at English. We laughed at each other when we broke the language, which is what we would call Khoroba Sekhoa, then translated loosely to breaking the language, which to me is being innovative in language. We silenced ourselves when our English vocabulary failed us. I imagine today a world in which much of how we interact and tell our stories is in our languages, which reflects our culture. As the history of storytelling would have it, the folk stories we grew up on and history of our land is not well documented. And if they are, they're not as accessible. While that could be mildly forgiven, a newer atrocity has risen next to it, which is that we hardly tell our stories in Setswana today, at least not in the world I live in. In a world fast-going digital, however it finds us, those are the snapshots of a time that will be remembered of us. The stories we tell of ourselves, how we tell them, reflects who we are, and that translates vividly in the digital and virtual world. How far better off we would be if we showed up as authentically as ourselves whenever we are called forward. We're called forward whenever someone makes an internet search to say, day in the life of a 32-year-old Motswana in Gaborone, what to expect when you go to Korea on a budget, or religious and traditions of India. We're called forward every time we come up as a reference point of any area of our lives. As Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie said in her TED Talk titled The Danger of a Single Story, we are all impressionable and vulnerable in the face of a story. It therefore matters what stories we tell of ourselves, how we tell them, and how we tell them, because the world is listening, and the algorithm is a living animal of habit that we need to teach and harness so that it can serve us. As a writer interested in identity, I believe that if we're still ashamed of our native languages, we show up in the world with a kind of internalized shame of who we are. We trivialize our languages. If we trivialize our languages and consider them not formal, as it is often the case with the first languages of countries with a history of being colonized, we make ourselves, our culture, our art, and our very essence small. As custodians and stewards of our stories, it is therefore important to write, create art, inspire dialogue about ourselves, to look around and not see yourself, even in a world that claims diversity, is to look at a mirror and have it name you, no one. Refuse to be erased. Take to the hilltops with fingertips your best and authentic self. And by way of goodbye, please allow me to read this poem. This is Girl. Hello. I'm a girl of many tongues and few mouths. Lend me yours so I can show you the places I have been. When I was a little girl, my mother took me to a faraway country, left me there to learn the black and white dance of another language and people. When I came back, I did not know which way to London by way of elaborate etiquette and pleasantries. To make my journey, I had to uproot a little forest out of my mouth to make way for the smooth faux lawn of the Queen's song. Already of age, everything unfamiliar, I got to work night and day. My name is, I am a girl. I am a girl, my name is. What is my new name? My father said Felicity, so there you go. Dumelang, my name is Felicity. I lost too much on my way to this conversation to tell you my improvised name, meant to oil my tongue so as to let me fit into this picture. On my flight here, I am a girl. I am a girl. I am still a girl. Though 32 years have passed, though my father in his grave let a man herd cattle into his kraal for a name, still girl, though I made my way here all by myself. Thank you so much.
Thank you. What a dazzling set of presentations. Now we'll open it up to the floor for questions, comments. Again, wait till Ikram gets to you with the microphone.
Hello. Thank you so much for these stories today. One of the central themes that I found in these writings was about identity and identity curation. I'd like to know some of your opinions about how to authentically present your own stories in an age where a lot of online anonymity is important, and alongside what the first author said today, the sort of curation that presents multiple identities. How do you all approach writing with these identities as possible threats?
And I'm guessing you're opening that to everyone on the panel, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So who wants to start?
I'll start. I think when I was reflecting on my own experiences using the internet since being a teenager, I realized that as I get older, I find more of a need to protect myself and to be very conscious about what it is that I share. And I think it goes hand in hand with the fact that I am a writer and that I now have this very public persona, that there are people out there who actually can find out a lot more about me than I first anticipated when I first started using the internet. So for me, it's been this sort of balancing act of being able to have a boundary around what it is that I can share about my personal self, which is, I guess, my life story, versus how I present that in the poetry, which allows me to be a little bit more fanciful, allows me to take some creative liberties. So it's sort of almost like having two different sandboxes or sandpits to play in for me.
And in terms of writing in this digital age, it is crucial to pay a lot of attention to the ambience of the stories, to the pictorial effect, because these are some of the aspects that make that try to retain the original, the indigenous freshness of the stories. So I am privileged to be a playwright, and so it is much easier in playwriting than in other types of writing, because in playwriting you are writing for people to do and to present and to show, and so as opposed to writing for people to read. So in short, I look at the preservation of the ambience, of the pictorial effect, as well as of the original meaning of culture. Thank you.
For me, I used to be a journalist 16 years now. So I used to write about people, about them stories. So I know how to separate myself of these stories. But when I start to write mine, I guess not everything people should believe it's me, or what I'm sharing this is me. People will believe that this is what they think, or prefer to believe that they know the writer and they know everything, and what he's saying is his life and from his experience. But the amazing thing for me is that I can mix everything, and everyone believes that is part of me, and no problem, it's okay. I am not interested to see or to know what's their opinion about my character. But yeah, the first question it will be, is this you in this book? And sometimes they don't believe, or they can't imagine that maybe I am one of this character, but the one that you will never imagine it's me. So it's a nice game, playing with them. It's very good. And I enjoy that. Yeah.
All right. Riffing off on what she's saying, I often get the same questions that, are you writing autobiographically? If you read a poem about a sad girl, are you the sad girl? But at the moment, I'm learning that if I'm true to myself, which is, again, what I was just talking about as well, if we learn to be authentically ourselves, to move, I think it's an inward movement into yourself. And if you know yourself enough, you have less time to try to advance or any kind of evil, I would say, and you're moved to empathy. So the stories that you tell, even if you live in a different community and you write about people in that community, there's a kind of care that you have to talk about that community. So I hope that makes sense. Yeah, that'll be my take.
This is a question particularly to the writer from Malawi. So I think writers have both talent, I mean, obviously we assume you have talent, but also courage. How does the matter of courage differ between traditional oral storytelling environments versus when you're doing the digital storytelling?
Traditionally, it is a bit more difficult because you are doing it normally doing it in a real life situation with real life audiences, as opposed to digitally where you can use animation, you can also pretend to be others, because even in, the challenge is that even in a traditional storytelling setup, even when you pretend to be that which you are not, people also will always immediately associate what you are representing. So that's the slight danger, but also perhaps the challenge that storytellers would enjoy, because the storyteller would like to have immediate feedback. And so it presents a chance for immediate feedback, as opposed to digital storytelling where you don't know what people think, you're not there. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, hello. My name is Omar Ngor. I'm from South Sudan. I was, when I was entering the rooms, I was very interested, that I saw New Zealand and then Malawi, Egypt, and Botswana. And then I felt like, I belong, This is where, and then whenever people talked about the storytelling, is totally different for us in Africa, because in America, before the people get to indoor, they were outdoor. We have this kind of, the neighbors telling the things all over. And we have it, till today, we have it in Africa. Okay, now, with the digital thinking, it changed a lot of things. All the people, and maybe you guys, you watched that video that, was posted for the Japanese, whenever the people come to their grandmother house, she have to collect all the phones and then drop them for you to allow you to get inside. Because the digital things has the benefits and also has the other side that people are not interacting. Now all the people are missing this. If I look at this room now, who are the people who are in here? The American people are not here, right? Only the old people. Yeah. When I say that, I'm talking about the generations back. And now we have that very young people sitting up here and talking about the storytelling. And this is something is very amazing, and it should be add up. And thank you. This is what I was trying just to put in.
I was very moved by the image of the active storyteller, the call and response. So it got me thinking, you know, when you see a play, there's interaction between the audience and the actors. You know, they wait for a laugh or they allow things to happen and control the pace. So then I guess I'm thinking forward, will there, or what would it look like for digital storytellers? I mean, even a hologram, if that's ever possible in the future, how could you allow for that space in somebody telling a story? I don't know if that'll ever be possible, but it's interesting to think about.
Was there a question in that as well?
Just, what do you think?
That would only be possible where the digital storytelling is live. Oftentimes it's not live. Oftentimes it's people playing a tape or what, or something that was done. But if digital storytelling were to be live with an audience somewhere or all over the world at the time, perhaps that would be possible.
I think there are definitely going to be developments in how we use digital technologies for plays, poetry readings, you know, the traditional sort of storytelling channels that we have. And, you know, in fact, we already have like a band like ABBA using holograms to perform concerts because they can't get on stage anymore. And one of the things that I am always thinking about is how do we actually ensure that whatever new technology or whatever new platforms we come up with, that we do consider how they can be utilized for something like a performance, rather than just using them to try and replicate a live storytelling or a live performance situation, because that's never going to work. I think, you know, during the pandemic and lockdowns, you know, we were having things like online poetry readings, which can mimic what you might have in a room, in a theatre, with an audience, but there is always going to be a disconnect because you're never going to necessarily get that immediate response from an audience member, and you're never going to feel the same sort of energy. But, you know, that was a means to an end. And I think the interesting thing about going online is that people, in a way, also started to get used to that sort of interaction with performers and artists. And so I hope that the next step of that conversation is how do we actually develop that further and sort of continue to evolve those sorts of performance and storytelling.
Yeah. When I came here in America in 2000, and actually I'm stunned by the Native American oral tradition, and also by the writer, Native American writer, who speak about their experience. I think in many parts of the world, oral storytelling, or for me, storytelling is oral, but what we do now is writing stories. And there is a lot of technique, of theme, of many things that you can find it in the oral tradition of many nations who are writing about their experience, their feeling, and their identity. The striking thing when they talk about identity, most of them, it is not this tribe or this nation. The identity is the place, the mountain, the rivers, the hills, and how they treat the animals. And I think the storyteller now, or the story writer, I don't know how to put my question, but there is a very rich thing which is oral or storytelling. They can make use of it. Do you or can you?
I'm with your opinion, and I guess you know that Sira al-Hilaliya, one of this kind of epics, that it's something stories that from the grandparents and all the generations, and we have all these stories for Karakos. That's this kind of art of puppets that the man used to visit villages in Egypt and telling these stories about people, and he can't read or write. And a lot of this kind of oral stories become part of the history we have. And from people doesn't read or write or know anything about the language, but they know how to make a story. So this is the famous kind of art in before writing in Egypt, and we have all this kind of big and huge. Now they are collecting like Sira al-Hilaliya. They worked about this, but it is still like it's more songs. So you can find the man who can tell like 2 hours song, and he have all this in his head. So yes, I'm with your theory too. I support this.
Could I follow up with something just about that? You quoted quite beautifully the line from Paul Auster that stories only happen to those who are able to tell them. I think a lot of people would have wandered into that market and found that letter and nothing would have come of it. But you were able to turn it into a larger story. So it's a two-part question. How are you able to find those stories? What makes up, what is the makeup of a real storyteller? And does that letter writer have a name yet, real or fictitious?
Yeah. Okay, so at the times I found these letters for the man, I found another man, 10 letters for a man from ETs, and he was married and has kids, but he was has the breast, and he write poets to his wife, and he writing that he has all this depression, but he is fighting for the family, and it's really sensitive letters. And the both men wrote about the war at this time. At the 80s, it was Iran, and the 90s, it was Iraq and Kuwait. So it's not only about this emotion and about this love. So the book, basically, that I have have it already exist. I am playing the role of the 2 women. I never found the letters. And I build this society at this time. I read 2 years, I'm reading about the society at this time, what the women like in Egypt, how they used to wear, how everything. And because the men write questions and sometimes write answers, so I now know what the letters of the women look like. So, but yesterday I played a game with 2 friends from here, and they give me an idea to mix the 2 women to be a 1 woman doing something fancy. And I love the idea because I like 3 hours playing with this, changing in my room to have a new theory about this. And I think it will be like a 1 woman playing this role, that she answers those men who left them countries in this time to build another countries. And they are suffering from missing, and they are funny, and they have all this passion. And the game be more interesting now with me. And yeah, the name, we have this 2 men from Saudi Arabia. This and actually he's drawing too. He's drawing like some erotic stuff too. So he's amazing. So we have this one. His name is Saeed. It's a happy. It's in Arabic. It's happy. And we have this another one. It's live in Iraq at this time. Its name is Metwali. So yes, these 2 men are Egyptian in different 10 years, but they have this kind. And it was a part of the game. I am used to ask why we are in a society that everything has a schedule. If you have a feeling to someone, you should wait until marriage. If you have something you need, everything need time. The time that the society gives you the license to have it. But actually, our parents who raised up on these rules, they broke it, and they broke it in a very bad ways. So yeah, let's say that they did that. So this is my time now.
So can we look forward to a book that will include drawings?
What?
Will your book include drawings?
Drawings. Will it include drawings?
Yes, I will. Yes, I will. but I will not use the right name of the postman. But yeah, I will use the letters as it. And maybe after this, I will show you this drawing. I will find it here to see how he was. No, it's really good. It's really funny and good.
Yeah, but we may not want to put that on TV though. So.
You can't put it on TV.
Hi, I'll just stand and ask. Hey, thank you for such a good conversation. I just wanted to ask your personal relationships with like social media and Instagram and Twitter, and how, if at all, they kind of are relevant to your writing practice and things that you like write or don't write about, if they dictate that in any way. Yeah.
For me? It's me? Oh.
Well, I read this social media. I don't take a lot of, from social media. I'm able to change things, to change stories. You know, whenever I see stories, I add what I call the what if factor. So this is what they say happened, and then what if it happened in this way. That's what I usually do. But let me hasten to say that I find lots of lies and truths on social media which shouldn't be there at all. Thank you.
There is sort of, I guess, an argument that writers should be on social media for marketing purposes. So I unfortunately feel compelled to be on social media just so I have that presence so my publisher is happy. But I do use it, and I have always used it, to connect with writers from around the world and to be able to sort of find work that interests me and that will speak to me. And that has been one of the best things about being able to use social media from my own personal perspective. I guess, social media does allow you to see the world through different lenses, and it's how you interpret and use what you see as a writer that will, inspire you, I guess. So for me, social media has been just another way of looking at the world and using it to sort of tempt and test my curiosity as a writer and see where that might lead me.
Well, I am on social media. I like social media. I don't think I imagine it as my other world. It's just like part of the whole world that exists, and it kind of like helps me write my stories. I was talking earlier about how in Botswana we don't necessarily use Setswana like that. When you get on when you see a reel online, it'll probably be, hello, this is what I did today, and it was quite interesting to find other social media work, people who will do their reels in Setswana. So things like that inspire me. And of course, social media for me is also about community. For example, even just finding this program, the IWP, it was actually through Twitter, I think, 3 years ago or so. And the many other opportunities that I find to send my work out and to get it published, I find them through social media. So I think that is why I still exist in that world.
For me, it's a little bit different because in a politics way, it's in 2011, the social media wasn't about having fun and get a friend and all of that. It was more involved in something bigger. It's a politics movement. So, and it's still, for years, it was the only space that we can work as a journalist, because if the website is blocked for any reason, so you can post on Facebook. If anyone asks for help, or if they want to collect for something, so it was through social media. And in this way, it was really successful, and it helped a lot. And it's kept our archive, basically the visual archive we have for these days. Now, yes, I'm enjoying social media, but because it gives me the chance to practice more, okay, I need this title only in 4 words because it will catch people. it's like 10 words, people will not, it's nothing will last in their mind. But it's more about practice, how to be short, how to be in the point, how to be smart. So sometimes it's more a challenge to be on the social media with this feeling that, okay, I want to write a very good story, but in the same time, I want audience because I'm not writing for the birds. So yeah, I guess it's more for practice too.
I think we have time for one more very brief question. So.
Okay, I'm very sorry, it won't be a question. We'll just react. I'm Yasin Adnan, a Moroccan writer, and I was interested in the idea of storytelling as techniques. And I think that, yes, we writers today, we have a lot of things to learn from those stories and to use that technique. And I think that different narrative writings in different countries can differentiate because of these special original heritages. I am from Marrakesh, and I have spent my childhood in the 70s in Jam' Fna Square, which has been considered the first universal oral heritage of humanity in the world by UNESCO. And from there, I have started listening to stories, and the first book I will search to read was The Arabic Nights, 1001 Night, simply because the storyteller was telling the story, and when it is a bit night, I should go home. The child I was should go back home, and then I decided to read the book to know what's taking place next. And I think up to now in my writing, I just cannot get rid of that heritage, and I'm using it. You can feel it easily in Arabic, but even in translation, some people say that we feel the narrator, the old narrator, in what you write. But I just consider that storytelling for us is something so important, so precious. It's something that that is very important in terms of literature, and it is something that goes to the memory, while the digital storytelling today is something to be forgotten easily because it's voiceless, and it's something that we produce without any talent, and it's something just you should kick it out to get something else. I mean, it's not, c'est pour l'oubli et c'est pas pour la mémoire. The storytelling, the old one, is for memory.
Well, that is one of the stranger ways to end this fascinating panel. Thank you so much.
No,
See
but
you
wait,
next time.
This is, okay? You can see now this very beautiful woman. You see?
Okay, we'll blur that on the recording.
Yes, but she's covering a little bit because she's shy, so yeah.
Thank you so much.